Firstpost reports from the world's second largest continent. Hello, I'm Alyson Grange. A very warm welcome from Durban, South Africa. We get you the news and the newsmakers from Africa. From elections to climate change to innovations and opportunities. As the world's attention shifts, we report from Africa, the heart of the global south. Join me every weekday live on Firstpost. Hello and welcome to Firstpost Africa, where we get you the top stories from the continent and from across the world. I'm Alyson Grange, coming to you live from Durban, South Africa. First, let's take a look at the headlines. Oil prices jumped to their highest levels in 5 months after the US joins Israeli strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities, fueling fears of supply disruptions in an already volatile region. Russian President Vladimir Putin slams the Trump-led strikes on Iran as unprovoked, but offers no clear military backing for Tehran, despite their strategic alliance. Japan's Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba abruptly cancels his visit to this week's NATO summit at The Hague, just days after confirming attendance, citing various circumstances. Thai Prime Minister Paetongtarn Shinawatra kicks off a cabinet reshuffle to save her embattled government, rocked by coalition defections, triggered by a leaked phone call. And Beijing issues its second highest heat alert amid scorching temperatures, marking one of the hottest days this year. Hello and welcome. We start with the Israel-Iran war. After the US struck Iran's nuclear strikes over the weekend, the stakes have gone up massively. The world is bracing for Iran's next move, and it has promised a response. Egypt is raising alarm over the situation. Cairo has broken silence. It is calling for de-escalation, condemning the violations of international law, and warning that the region is heading toward a dangerous tipping point. Here's what Egypt had to say. Now, in a statement released on Sunday, Egypt's foreign minister called the situation grave. It warned regional and global peace could be at risk. The country urged all sides to respect the UN Charter and international law. So Egypt's stance is very clear. Say no to military action and yes to dialogue. Now, the statement came just hours after Donald Trump's announcement, where he confirmed aerial strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear sites. These were Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan. At the Fordow facility, Trump claimed a full payload of bombs was dropped and the targeted locations have been obliterated.
Our objective was the destruction of Iran's nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
The US strikes came after weeks of escalation in the Israel-Iran conflict. But the weekend operation marked America's direct entry into the confrontation. Now, the US has entered this confrontation. Egypt also postponed a planned visit to India by Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati. No reason was given, but it came just hours after the US bombing. Meanwhile, Cairo's nuclear regulatory body said that Egyptian Nuclear and Radiological Regulatory Authority has reassured its citizens the strikes have no direct impact on Egypt. Now, the ENRRA said it detected no radiation changes, and it is monitoring the situation closely. The UN nuclear watchdog, that is the IAEA, also reaffirmed this, saying there was no increase in radiation levels. Iran's atomic energy body has also said that there was no risk to residents near the targeted sites. But Tehran has vowed retaliation, and it is already doing it. In the aftermath of the US strikes, Iran fired missiles at Tel Aviv, injuring several people. Israel, which is believed to possess nuclear weapons and is not a signatory of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, has long opposed Iran's nuclear program. So, across the region, tensions are on edge. Egypt, while not taking sides, continues to push for calm, and it warns that the window for diplomacy is closing fast. Now, for more on this, we have with us on the show Shadwa Zahir, a global affairs analyst who is joining us live from Cairo, Egypt. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Alyson. Thank you for having me.
Now, Shadwa, how are the African nations positioning themselves diplomatically amid the escalating US-Iran tensions, especially considering many countries maintain strategic partnerships with both the US and key Middle Eastern actors?
That's a great question, because I think African states are not passive observers of the situation. They are recalibrating their diplomacy to hedge against systemic uncertainties. So, for instance, you can see that most of the African nations emphasize de-escalation and regional stability because they recognize the African, Middle Eastern, and US long history of economic ties. So we have Egypt and Algeria are leading this balancing act. On one side, they're publicly criticizing the escalation of the regional instability, and on the other side, they're protecting their economic equities. Like, for instance, the remodeling of the export-import natural gas relationship with Israel on the Egyptian side. For sub-Saharan Africa, like Kenya and Nigeria, they're keeping an eye on the Strait of Hormuz, so that knows how this will impact their oil exports and oil flows. So in my opinion, in short, African countries' situation now could be defined as pragmatic multi-alignment, but not neutral camp.
And Shadwa, given Egypt's current economic position, how are the US-Iran tensions compounded by regional instability impacting Egypt's trade, energy imports, and currency markets?
Yeah, Egypt is walking a tightrope. On one side, it's absorbing external shocks, like oil prices volatility, dollar shortages, and falling or disrupted Suez Canal trade routes. But on the other side, the crisis is reinforcing Egypt's strategic geographic position. With one side, global actors are now thinking that the supply chain could be rerouted to African countries like Egypt, given its Suez and India, Middle East, European corridor. And this becomes indispensable for the global supply chain and global value chain. Adding to this, the Israel-Egypt export-import natural gas relationship that's been remodeled after the escalation of the situation in the Middle East now made the exports to Israel heightened after this deal done with Qatar and Algeria. So I think if Egypt managed macro pressures and extract long-term gains from short-term disruptions, it will be able to stabilize its foreign exchange inputs.
Right. And how has Egypt's condemnation of Israel's offensive in Iran and its warning of grave repercussions shaped broader African diplomatic responses to the US strikes?
In my opinion, Egypt's stance did actually embolden African position, made more African countries to have an assertive tone, especially that African countries with Egypt share a long history of colonialism, along with rising calls from youth to have a real independent leadership. On the other side, Egypt warning signals actually is an effort to preserve the energy deals that is happening in the Middle East. Again, the one that is related to the re-export model with Israel, while still asserting its moral leadership among African countries. So in my opinion, Alyson, Egypt is acting as a diplomatic cover to African countries, allowing them to criticize the regional instability while not antagonizing the Western economic ties.
Yes. Shadwa, as always, great to have you on the show. Thank you for your valued insights.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we now shift our focus to the Horn of Africa, where the threat from Al-Shabaab terrorists continues to grow. In the latest, fighting with Al-Shabaab has killed at least 7 Ugandan soldiers in Somalia. These troops were a part of an ongoing mission against the Al-Qaeda-linked terror group. Now, according to the Ugandan Defense Ministry, the losses occurred during a 3-day siege over a town in the lower Shabelle region of Somalia. The town has become a strategic location used by terrorists to plan deadly attacks, hide ammunition, and to set up illegal checkpoints to extort locals. While Ugandan forces have confirmed their losses, they announced that the town has been recaptured from Al-Shabaab. In a statement, they said that a joint operation, codenamed Operation Silent Storm, forced the terrorists out of their hideouts and underground tunnels. The operation eliminated 30 Al-Shabaab fighters, as per Ugandan forces. Ugandan troops also recovered a cache of weapons and dismantled several improvised explosive devices. Ugandan soldiers are a part of the African Union's support and stabilization mission in Somalia. It is tasked with combating Al-Shabaab. Now, the mission includes troops from Uganda, Burundi, Kenya, Djibouti, and Ethiopia. And the mission has replaced the previous African Union deployment and currently has over 11,000 troops. Although in April, the mission stated that it needed an additional 8,000 troops. The recent attacks have stoked fears of an Islamist resurgence in the Horn of Africa as the Somalia mission grapples with troop shortages. Somalia has long struggled with a violent Islamist insurgency led by Al-Shabaab, which aims to topple the government and to impose a strict Islamic state. While Somalia forces, backed by African Union peacekeepers, have pushed the group onto the defensive mode, recent attacks in strategic towns have raised alarm over the group's potential comeback. In March, Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud escaped an assassination attempt after terrorists targeted his motorcade in the capital of Mogadishu. Al-Shabaab has also carried out a hotel siege and an attack on a police camp in other parts of the country since then. The U.S. military is also involved in Somalia, focused on counter-terrorism operations, including airstrikes, training, and intelligence support. But according to reports, U.S. President Trump may be considering a troop withdrawal. Despite years of military operations and international support, Al-Shabaab remains a persistent threat, not just to Somalia, but to the wider Horn of Africa region. As peacekeepers face resource gaps and questions linger over global commitments, the path to lasting stability remains uncertain. And for our next story, we look at Mali, the country's junta leaders in Moscow. Now, he arrived there on Sunday morning. It is a symbolic visit that speaks volumes, and we'll try to understand why. Now, this is Mali's junta chief. His name is General Assimi Goïta, and he is also the transitional president. Now, according to the Mali state broadcaster, He is due to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and his trip will last until the 26th of June. The main focus? To strengthen bilateral relations, discuss energy and trade, boost military cooperation, and to enhance security ties. But above all, it is about shifting loyalties. Under Goita, Mali has turned its back on the West, and especially on France, and its former colonial master. And first, let's understand who he is. Now, back in August of 2020, Goita staged a coup. He was a special forces commander. Goita overthrew the president, Ibrahim Keïta, and 9 months later he did it again, and he toppled a civilian interim government in another coup. By mid-2021, he officially became the head of state, and since then, he has been shutting out the West, kicking out French troops, turning away from ECOWAS, or the Economic Community of West African States, and severing ties with the United Nations. Instead, he has turned to Russia, and this week, this partnership takes center stage. The timing is no coincidence either. Recently, Russia's Wagner Group exited Mali. It had been operating since 2021, but now it has withdrawn. The Kremlin has always denied backing the Wagner Group, but now Mali is looking at a new mercenary unit. It's called the Africa Corps. Now, through this, Moscow is projecting itself as the main security partner in Mali, and the African country is welcoming it. Amid the growing surge in insurgents, since 2012, Mali has been battling groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS, and that has intensified in recent weeks. Insurgents have targeted military outposts, camps, and convoys. Civilian casualties and ethnic violence have also risen. With French troops gone and the UN mission withdrawn, Mali relies heavily on foreign contractors. And that's where Russia steps in. And that's why Goita had his trip to Moscow, which is very important. But other than security, Mali is also looking for more support in energy, mining, and transport sectors. Now, the two have already cooperated on arms deliveries, and Mali is looking to expand that. For Putin, this is a part of a bigger push. He wants to deepen Russia's footprint in the continent, so traditional alliances are being rewritten, new partners are being chosen, and African leaders are looking at the East for support. And our last story is from Nigeria, where two communities are taking one of the world's largest oil and gas companies to court over massive environmental damage. Two indigenous communities in Nigeria, the Bile and the Ogale, with a combined population of around 50,000 people, are suing Shell and its Nigerian subsidiary over years of oil pollution. Shell is a UK-based multinational firm, and it has been exploring, extracting and exporting oil in Nigeria for decades, playing a major role in building the country's oil sector. But that role has come under intense scrutiny. Locals accuse the firm of environmental damage, contaminating water sources and worsening health conditions in oil-producing communities, particularly in the Delta region. The communities have filed legal action against Shell and its local unit, which is known as Renaissance Africa Energy Company. The case was first filed in 2015, and on Friday, a UK High Court ruled on over 20 preliminary issues. So far, around 85 oil spills have been identified in the two regions. The court found that Shell could be held liable even for damage caused by third-party sabotage, the practice known locally as bunkering. Now, the ruling clears the way for a full trial, scheduled to begin in March of 2027, and expected to last 4 months. The communities claim that the pollution has devastated farmlands, poisoned water sources, and made entire villages vulnerable and unlivable. Now, they are seeking financial compensation and a cleanup of the contaminated areas. According to the United Nations, at least 1.5 million tons of crude oil have been spilled in the Niger Delta since 1958, in over 7,000 recorded incidents.
The oil spills, the gas well in the region is the one that destroyed our soil. And for this reason, we come together today in a very peaceful manner, in a very non-violent manner, and demand our justice. All Ghana need justice. Share must pay. Share must pay.
Our crops is not coming out. We don't have drinking water mostly. The underground water is seriously affected. Even when you dug a borehole now, you can't get a good water to drink in the whole of Ogali. So right now, we don't have good source of drinking water in Ogali. No crops coming out, as you can see. This village has spoiled to the land that we cannot be able to produce cassava again, which is our source of living.
Shell and its subsidiary maintain that most of the spills were caused by criminal acts, including vandalism, pipeline tapping, and illegal oil refining. The firm says it cannot be held liable for those actions. Nonetheless, Shell has welcomed the UK court's ruling and reiterated its position that spills in the Niger Delta are caused by oil theft or sabotage, not by Shell. As the Niger Delta continues to grapple with the aftermath of decades of oil spills, the outcome could set a powerful precedent for environmental justice, not just in Nigeria, but across resource-rich regions worldwide. And that's it on the show for today. We will see you again at the same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.